The underbelly is just grief and sadness. But
Mhm.
the easy emotion to tap into, that higher emotion to tap into, is anger because it's accessible. Because
Welcome to the Multiple Truths podcast. We're your hosts, Holly
and Brittany. This is a space where we can come together healing in community, where we share our self-love journeys, insights, and wisdom.
a space with no hierarchy or judgment, fostering love, compassion, and respect, and where we honor our differences. With open minds and hearts, everyone's truth is welcome here. We are in this together. Let's dive into the episode. Hello and welcome. You're here with Holly, and today I'm joined with Dr. Neeta Bhushan. I hope I'm pronouncing her last name correctly, but I absolutely loved this conversation. I feel like you are going to love this too. We dive deep into turning your pain into purpose, moving through grief, feeling your emotions, connecting with your inner child and your inner teenager. And we also discuss at the end how to support children in feeling their emotions. So, if you're a parent or a caregiver or an aunt, an uncle, whatever, deal with children at all or plan to be a parent. I know I'm going to be a mom one day in the future. And this conversation was so incredibly eye opening for me. I really encourage you to listen till the end because Dr. Neeta shares so much wisdom on how to help teach your children how to process their emotions in a healthy way. Because, yeah, I feel like many of us weren't taught how to fully feel and process our emotions as children because our parents or our caregivers didn't have the tools to help us process our emotions. We were more along the lines like talked out of our emotions of you're okay or you're fine. Or, if you were expressing, maybe like go to your room, whatever it was, like not fully taught how to feel your emotions and often made to feel like it was a weakness to feel, boys don't cry or brave girls don't cry or whatever it may be. So it's like oftentimes as adults, we're learning and relearning how to actually allow ourselves to feel our emotions because that's a powerful part of healing. And yeah, Dr. Neeta and I go into like how to support children and feeling safe to feel their emotions so they can be emotionally intelligent as they grow up and not suppress their emotions. And we talk about why it's so important to feel rather than suppress or intellectualize your emotions because emotions are energy in motion and they just want to be felt. They are meant to flow like water. They come and go in waves, but so many of us have been suppressing our emotions for years. So it's a deep rewiring to learn how to feel because each time you feel, you heal. And I met Dr. Neeta because I went through the embodiment coaching program led by her and Sahara Rose at the Highest Self Institute. And it was so healing for me, just showing the importance of really allowing yourself to feel your emotions and deeply connecting with your inner child and your inner teenager. Because a lot of these emotions that we've been suppressing for years, it's actually like allowing you to create safety within yourself to allow these young emotions to be felt and holding space for these younger parts of you, and allowing your emotions to flow like waves instead of like getting them stuck in your body. And just suppressing them, like we are emotional beings, we are human beings, we are meant to feel, but it's often been tied as a weakness to feel, but it's actually takes so much courage and bravery to feel. And I truly believe that so many of us, especially if you're listening, are breaking the generational patterns of emotional suppression, of trauma, of conditioning, and really learning how to feel and create that safety for yourself rather than suppress and repress and escape your emotions. And yeah, I'm now an embodiment coach, like a certified embodiment coach. And I incorporate that so much in my holistic healing coaching because I deal with a lot of women that struggle with emotional eating or binge eating. And anytime you're turning to food, there's an emotion that's present that you are suppressing by eating. And allowing yourself to actually sit with what is coming up for you instead of immediately turning to food, or some people turn to alcohol, to drugs, to social media, to work, whatever it is. Actually allowing yourself to sit with the discomfort, sit with the emotion that's coming up, allowing yourself to breathe, taking some deep belly breaths to signal to your nervous system that you're safe. It's safe for you to sit here. It's safe for you to be with this discomfort. It's safe for you to feel this emotion instead of feeding and suppressing the emotion. So like breathing to create that safety. Okay, Where am I feeling this in my body? What part of me needs to be seen right now? What do I need to feel right now? And oftentimes there's a younger part of you that needs to be seen, that needs to be loved, that needs to be validated. And sometimes there's an emotion that needs to come through. Maybe you need a big cry. Maybe you're feeling angry and you need to just let out some screams. You need to punch your pillow. You need to shake your body. Whatever it is, actually allowing yourself to feel what is coming up for you instead of suppressing it and pushing it down, and like letting yourself know that it's safe to feel. And that's how you take your power back, is by allowing yourself to feel instead of constantly distracting yourself from sitting through discomfort and being the comfort to yourself, feeling what you need to feel, coming back to your heart, being that nurturing, compassionate energy to yourself, and like really reparenting yourself in that moment. And yeah, I'm so passionate about inner child and inner teenage work because yeah, oftentimes like we're running from these younger parts of us, but they just want to be seen and heard and validated, and you can do that for yourself instead of giving your power away to outside sources. So learning how to be in your body and feel your emotions as they come up is so incredibly powerful. So we dive into that a little bit in this episode, and yeah, it's just such a powerful episode. So to give you a little bit more background on Dr. Neeta Bhushan, she is the co-founder of the Global Grit Institute, a mental health training platform for leaders and professionals, and co-founder of the Highest Self Institute, training thousands to live their best lives, and is a world-renowned expert on grit and resilience. Dr. Neeta Bhushan has helped thousands of people move past their heartbreaks, failures, and disappointments. She was once a cosmetic dentist turned acclaimed transformational speaker and emotional health advocate. That sucked now what has sparked was sparked by her own life experience of overcoming multiple adversities, which include being orphaned at a young age, surviving an abusive marriage of domestic violence, and extensive loss. And yeah, she's just such a beautiful soul. We dive into her journey from, moving from being a dentist to now being a transformational speaker and emotional health advocate. So, yeah, with that, we will dive in. Well, hello and welcome, Dr. Neeta. Thank you so much for being here today. I'm so excited to chat with you.
Oh my goodness, Holly. So such a pleasure. I'm so excited to dive in.
Yeah. So I would love to start out just by hearing about your shift from being a dentist to becoming a transformational speaker and emotional health advocate, because yeah, that's quite a big shift. So I'm just curious, like, what led to that transition for you?
Well, isn't it always when we have kind of our darkest moments, when we're brought to our knees, when we have something in our lives that brings us closer to our spiritual center, our core, whether it's a breakup, a loss, a disease, something that propels you further. I feel like many times we can either take the leap and listen to that inner
Mhm,
calling, or we can ignore it and then
mhm,
keep going on until something like that happens again to wake us up. And so
mhm,
for me, it was a combination of literally all of those things. I was at the end of my 20s, my Saturn return, where I was, in a tumultuous, I fell in love, but I was in a tumultuous relationship. And
mhm,
it wasn't, looking back, I think I wanted to be loved and find love and really recreate a family that I had lost growing up. I had lost my
mhm.
parents and brother before I was 19. And
Yeah.
so just to have, a tremendous amount of heartache and seeing both of your parents go through such a, you know, awful journey in their lives of trying to, keep up with the Joneses, and they got sick. They both had cancer. It
Mm,
really shaped me in my
mm.
20s to, succeed in everything that I did. And so I chose medicine because I came from a Filipino Indian background of
Yeah.
tiger parenting. And, that's all I knew. That's all I grew up with was
Mm,
success and accolades, achievement. And on the one hand, it was great because it was an amazing coping mechanism to suppress the big and huge darkness that I kind of lived through
mhm,
and grown up with. but it would
Mhm.
catch up to me later on in my 20s when
Mhm.
I would choose a partner that would help me realize, probably in not the best ways, but I needed to come home back to myself. And so
Mhm.
I share it in this way simply because, I think there's so much empowerment to looking inward to the choices that we make. And every choice that we make
Mhm.
is not a good or bad choice. It's just getting us closer and closer to who we truly are as spiritual beings in a human
Mhm.
body having a human experience.
Yeah.
And so, when all of my external world came crashing down, I left my beautiful marriage on the outside,
Mm.
and I finally reconciled with a lot of the shadows and the darkness that I'd been carrying for over, a decade at this point. And I realized that I needed to come home to myself, that all of this
Mhm.
external, the 7-figure plus practice, I wasn't even 30. I was the youngest to,
Mm.
all of these like shiny outwardly accolades were
Mhm.
great on paper. But I wasn't fully alive in my heart. And I couldn't
Mhm.
pinpoint that until you're brought down to your knees. And I then, in those 7 years, I went back into kind of some of the teachings that I was born and raised with. My father had a beautiful spiritual practice. He was Indian. And so, during the times when my mom was sick, she got sick when I was 10, he would just be meditating every Sunday for 2 hours, and that's how I grew
Mm.
up. It's one of my earliest memories that, you know, dad's in his prayer room with his mala beads just chanting
Oh,
away, and that's what I
yeah.
but I think, when life really brings you to some of these tough moments when you're at a crossroads, you start to hold on to some of the rituals and practices that you were exposed,
Mhm.
and that really brought me, home. And so I traveled across the world to 45 different countries. I was very curious, and I write, some of these concepts now in many of my books because now I've written
Mhm.
4 books around
Wow.
emotional health, emotional intelligence, emotional
Mm.
resilience, emotional grit,
Yeah.
and, really how to embrace sometimes the joy in chaos, sometimes the joy in the hard moments. I just did a TED talk on how to find purpose in your hardest moments. Maybe we'll share it for everyone listening. Just
Mhm.
came out not too long ago, maybe less than
Yeah,
a month ago.
congratulations. That's amazing.
So, thank you. But
Yeah.
really, the alchemy has been to, unearth a lot of the things that I think many times we're told as kids, you're strong. And I was told ever since I was 10 years old, you're strong, Neeta, you're resilient, you're such a good
Mhm.
girl. And I think a
Mm.
lot of us,
Mhm.
as elder daughters and firstborn daughters, and maybe if you're the only daughter in your family, you have these expectations and these
Mhm.
expectations that are not talked about. And so
Mhm.
it really fueled and propelled me to this beautiful 7-year journey. And it
Mhm.
literally was, if anybody is spiritual, there's this, life and death, birth and death journey of 7 years. Took me
Mhm.
7 years to, then realize all of my layers of the current life
Mhm.
were starting to unravel. And so one of the first things that I did was, um, getting a bunch of coaches and healers and working with
Mhm.
all kinds of shamans and just deepening my spiritual practice. And
Mhm.
the more I deepened, the more my practice grew. The more I learned about leadership, the less I needed to be there. The more I surrendered, the less amazing humans in the form of angels and really
Mhm.
epic team members would come in and would say, hey, I got this, you go do you. And it was just beautiful. And so I
Mhm.
started to trust the process of, oh, wow, okay, universe is bringing me all types of things. Let me just say yes. Let me say
Yeah.
yes to these new opportunities. Let me say yes to these new breadcrumbs that would then eventually take me to San Francisco and the Bay Area, and
Yay.
really help me align with some of the projects that I was so, um, just lit up by and
Mhm.
alive with, which was nonprofit work. I went to nonprofit management at Stanford, and I just got the whole West Coast bug. And I
Yeah.
started a nonprofit to help women and girls with self love. So this was way before I started
Oh, I love that.
an institute with Sahara Rose. And
Yeah.
it was just the beginning, because I felt like if I can fall into this idea of being swept away in love and relationship and not have my own core,
Mhm.
how many other women get stuck and trapped in these relationships because they don't
Mhm.
have that worthiness within themselves. And so that was the problem that I wanted to solve.
Mhm.
And I didn't realize that it was going to lead to transformational
Yeah.
speaking and healing, because that was my first kind of milestone. But
Mhm.
it brought me to the West Coast. And once I got there, I'm like, wow, the world, the way the world moves and thinks and shakes, so different from the Midwest. And
Mhm.
I was sold. And then the rest is history.
Oh my gosh, that's actually so crazy because I'm from the Midwest and I moved to California because I felt like a similar like I wanted to follow like what my heart was telling me to do. And I was in San Francisco. I just moved out of San Francisco, but I love that so much because I think that your mission and my mission I feel like are very similar because my whole program is called The Journey Back Home to Self, like learning how to love yourself, learning how to come home to your heart, coming home to your wholeness, because I feel like that's when you can really start living in alignment. And just how you talked about, like, when you were working this corporate job, your 7-figure business, all of that, it's like you were successful on the outside, but like, were you truly happy on the inside? And I feel like that's the biggest thing, like in this mental health crisis that we're in. I feel like so many people are just like living their lives for other people, what life looks like, and not necessarily feeling their way through life, just trying to like what looks good on paper. So I love that you took your pain and turned it into purpose and like really started living in alignment because you've helped so many people with just by following your heart, and like going to inspire so many people to follow their heart and not necessarily what makes logical sense. So that's your whole journey is so powerful. I love that so much. Thank you for sharing that.
Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And as you like, I'd love to dive into just like feeling your emotions because I know, like you mentioned, you lost both of your parents and your brother at such a young age, which is such a profound loss. Like, my heart just goes out to you. I just can't even imagine that. And I just feel like grief can just feel so overwhelming for people. And I feel like a lot of people are afraid to go there because they feel like they're going to be overtaken by it. And I know it's a journey and it like comes in waves, it comes and goes. But yeah, I'm just curious, like, what would you recommend to someone like currently moving through grief? And how did you kind of navigate your own process without letting it like fully consume you?
Yeah, I think, in the beginning, and I feel like everybody can relate to this in one way or another, grief is such a powerful emotion. And I think, we're scared of it because, oh my gosh, God forbid anybody sees us crying. And we're
Hmm.
told when we're young, don't cry. My daughter, the other day, we came out of a grocery store and she ran, and there was a bump, and she just kind of went through that bump and
Hmm.
literally like face planted. And
Oh.
there was a young man coming in, towards us, and she gets up, dusted herself off, and I didn't say anything, right? Because usually moms will have a gasp or a what,
Yeah.
and then of course it'll elicit a whole, a whole string of things. So I didn't say
Hmm.
anything. I said, "Are you
Hmm.
okay?" And she's like, "Yeah," and that was it. But the guy in front of us said, "You are so courageous. You didn't cry. You didn't
Yeah.
cry. You're so strong. You're so strong." That's what's pegged in our society.
Right. Yes.
Strong,
Hmm.
bravery, you courageous. And I have a show called The Brave Table. Of
Hmm.
course, I get it. But at the same
Yeah.
time, you have to be brave to be soft. too.
Yeah, it takes bravery and courage to feel your emotions too. Like,
Absolutely.
yeah.
To be vulnerable and to allow
Mhm.
people to let them in. And I think,
Mhm.
for so many years, I had that facade. For so many
Mm.
years, I had that facade of, okay, got to be strong for my family, got to be strong for everyone around me. So I wouldn't break until I
Right.
said 3 words that would forever change my life, which was, I need help. And
Mm.
literally after that, it's like opening the doors and opening the portal to your heart to say, I'm ready to receive because
Mhm.
I need help. That's a very feminine way of being, especially for women when it's hard for us to ask for help because you're the alpha female and you're doing everything in your business, career, home,
Mhm.
and you take on this very masculine armor.
Mhm.
There's a lot of ego to ask
Right.
for help. There's a lot of ego or a fear of judgment. There's all these fears. And then you tack on a very powerful emotion such as grief. Grief shows us how we need to be tender with ourselves. Grief shows us that, wow, that situation really meant a lot to us. That person, that thing, that situation meant so much to us.
Mhm.
But then we're suppressing it. Well, we know from Chinese medicine and ancient Ayurveda is that if we are suppressing emotions, and this is what happened with both of my parents, oddly enough, my mom's cancer actually it spread into her lungs,
Mm.
and lungs is a sign of grief, sadness. My
Mhm.
brother, a year later, had an asthma attack. Again,
Mm.
lungs, grief, sadness. He was the
Mhm.
closest one to my mom. Now, I'm not saying that this is evident in every single family, but there's definitely something there.
Mhm.
And then 2 years later, my dad had stage 4 lung cancer also of the lungs, and they're all
Mhm.
they're coming from these cultures in Filipino where we're not taught this. We're taught feeling our emotions is a bad thing. You're supposed to be stoic, and we're supposed to just suck it up and shove it under a rug.
Mhm.
But where does all that grief go? And so my invitation for anybody who is navigating through grief is allow it allow it to take you. And what I
Mhm.
mean by that is the next time you feel a wave, because definitely grief works in waves,
Mhm.
and science shows that you only need 60 to 90 seconds to fully feel an emotion, to fully feel an
Mhm.
emotion. And when you set your timer for 60 to 90 seconds, and I promise you, when you've had one of those ugly cries, how long
Mhm.
are you actually like dry heaving and letting yourself go there? I've
Mhm.
done these exercises in corporate, boardroom doors, corporate workshops, and even with our own
Mhm.
communities online in person, where we're using an emotion as anger, and anger is another big one because
Mhm.
anger is just disguised as fear, as
Mhm.
grief and sadness. The underbelly is just grief and sadness. But
Mhm.
the easy emotion to tap into, that higher emotion to tap into, is anger because it's accessible, because
Mhm.
we've we know we can go there.
Mhm.
And society has kind of showed us in all of these memes, oh, the crazy lady who loses her stuff on her kids. That's easier um to reach. But with
Mhm.
sadness and tears, I've talked to so many people who they're like, no, I would never cry in the office. Oh, no way. And they'll go, you know they work at a corporate job and some boss said something to them or some manager, but they'll go directly to the stall and hold their face and
Yeah.
and just like let the tears, but won't emit a sound. We're still suppressing
Yeah. Mhm.
because of what? The taboo. And so if anybody is navigating through this, my big invitation is to allow it,
Mhm.
and there's so much research around scheduling grief, and I know this sounds so counterintuitive. It's like, why would I do that? But
Mhm.
if you are one that has been told, just like myself, that you shouldn't be feeling those emotions, shouldn't be sad, don't cry, etc., this is such a great exercise for you is to schedule it.
Mm-hmm.
And one of my earliest therapists when I was, a teenager, and then later on, I would do a lot of these, of course, to try to unpack this fully. But this has become one of my core signature, and you've probably experienced this in one of our programs, but is to set a timer for 5 minutes, 3 minutes, if you've never done this before, but to allow yourself to feel. And
Yeah.
you can pair it with one of those, and I know it's going to sound silly, but you can pair it with any of those songs that, and thank you, Spotify, we have these playlists where it's like
Yeah.
melancholy mood, sad mood,
Yeah.
we
To
have our
help tap
R&B.
into the emotion.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and we have our R&B, like 90s love song crying
Yeah,
crying
absolutely.
emo songs that you can tap
Yes.
into. And actually,
Yeah.
actors use this exercise to allow themselves to cry on cue. I actually created a reel not too long ago
Mhm.
about how and why actors are able to tap into their emotions. Well, they do
Mhm.
exercises like this to they'll bring up a situation, and they'll close their eyes, they'll put their hand over their heart, and they'll bring that emotion up. Well, another way to tap into it is to listen to one of those songs that would allow
Mhm.
you to go there, and then allow yourself to feel that. And all you're
Yeah.
doing is setting that timer for 3 minutes, and then 5 minutes, and then, 10 minutes. You're increasing it slowly and steadily, but you're allowing room and
Mhm.
spaciousness for your grief to live and be there. Because
Yeah.
most of the time, for most of us, we were told the opposite. And this is
Mhm.
where you get to rebalance your nervous system. You get to retrain your nervous system on how to be okay with grief and invite her in, and
Mhm.
say, you know what? I see you. You're there. You're there.
Mhm.
And there's nothing to be afraid of. I see you. I hear you. I'm with you. And
Mhm.
even to celebrate those parts of yourself that that were shunned, the 7-year-old that was told, well, big girls don't cry, or
Mhm.
the 2-year-old that was told, stop, or I'm going to give you something to cry about.
Mhm.
And so we get to go to those places, and there is a little bit of that inner child, perhaps maybe inner teenage work, to
Mhm.
sit with those emotions. And then, of
Mhm.
course, after that, we thank ourselves, we thank the grief. This is a full
Mhm.
practice, but it's, thanking the grief. Thank you, grief. Thank you for being with me. Thank you for allowing us to have this moment. I release you. You are no longer needed. And so we close up that energetic space, and then we
Mhm.
can move on with our day. And
Mhm.
it's kind of like, another meditation that you're doing, but you're allowing space for this. And this was one of the things that I did heavily, um, after my tumultuous divorce, when I went back into a whole decade's worth of all of the feelings that I didn't really experience and feel, that I was suppressing for such a long time. Um,
Mhm.
and it's one of the things that I actually talk about in my book, That Suck Now What. And so, yes, definitely
Mhm.
steal that.
Yeah. I love that because it almost feels like I feel like a lot of people feel like when they tap into it they're not going to be able to turn it off. So I think that like setting a timer and setting space aside to really allow yourself to go there fully with no judgment and like be semi in control because you have a timer going, like allowing yourself 5 minutes, whatever it is. Cause yeah, I can just imagine. I've not experienced like such profound grief, but I feel like giving myself space to feel my emotions is so powerful. And something that I've like is kind of like a rewiring and a retraining is like allowing myself to feel emotions as they just come up. So like if you feel grief out of nowhere or feel an emotion out of nowhere, like actually allowing yourself to sit with it and allow yourself to like feel safe enough to feel it fully in that moment too. Because there's so much power in that. And like every time you feel, you're healing, because I think it's like needing to be a rewiring and a retraining to allow ourselves know like it's safe to feel. It's actually takes so much strength and courage courage to feel, and just letting like the younger parts of you know that it's safe for you to feel now, and like you can be the parent that you needed in those moments to be able to like reparent yourself and be like, no, it is safe to cry and you can feel this emotion, and I'm going to hold this space for you, and you can go there, and just really being there for yourself. So I love that. Thank you for sharing that. We're interrupting this episode to share something close to our hearts, our virtual healing circles. We have been loving them so much and meeting so many of you incredible people through them. Brittany and I are passionate about bringing people together to support one another and heal in community. We felt alone on our paths for so long, and coming together in community has been instrumental to our growth, and we've both seen the importance in it. We aren't meant to do this alone. In unity and vulnerability, we find strength, courage, and support each other on our paths back to ourselves. Our monthly virtual seminars blend discussions, workshops, and practices to nurture your mind, body, and spirit. Whether seeking guidance, healing, or a listening ear, our gatherings offer a safe, inclusive space for people to connect, heal, and grow. Join us on this journey of healing in community. Together we can heal, grow, and thrive. Register for the next circle using the link in the show notes. We hope to see you there. I read a poem too. I can't fully remember it, but it was called Build a House for Grief. So it's like basically just allowing it to come, allowing her to come whenever she needs to, drawing a bath for her, making her a warm meal, crying with her, like holding space for her. It's just like building a house for it and just allowing it to come and go as she needs to, and like with no judgment, with just compassion and kindness. And yeah, I think there's just like a lot of a lot of feeling and a lot of like releasing judgment for self too when it comes to feeling it all, like feeling grief, feeling any sort of emotion, like just allowing yourself to feel with no judgment, just holding loving awareness and compassion for yourself, and like just allowing it to flow through, because emotions are just energy in motion. They just want to be felt. They just want to move through you, but we're just suppressing them down in our bodies. And yeah, the more you can just allow them to flow, I feel like the freer you become, the more you connect more deeply with yourself too in those moments, I feel.
Oh, it's
Yeah.
so true. It's so true. And I think so often that's the biggest thing that holds everyone back, right? Is this the
Yeah.
judgment, and I think I
Mhm.
just did a workshop with educators where I'm living now about just exactly this topic and nervous system regulation. And every single person in that room, no one could do, we were doing a screaming exercise we were playing with
Mhm.
anger.
Yeah.
And I had to say, okay, close your eyes and,
Mhm.
face the wall because,
Yeah.
it's actually a little bit safer when
Mhm.
you're doing this in big groups. But all this to say, we have this stigma around judgment, around, and it really bottlenecks us from really allowing us. So I would even add to that is when you're building your home for grief, it's, allow that same space and
Mhm.
have your pillows and have kind of maybe, your fuzzy socks or a fuzzy blanket or something, warm and cozy that you can snuggle up on. I have these mindful like corner for my kids. It's like a mindful
Mhm.
meditation corner, but we also use it as a feelings corner and a calm
Oh.
down corner and a rage
Mhm.
corner uh,
Yes.
in one area of our home. And guess what? Mama's using it too. It's not just for my kids. Uh,
Yeah.
we all need that spaciousness for regulating ourselves. And
Mhm.
if we don't, then it is going to erupt on
Yeah.
others as well.
Yeah, because I feel like in our world today, there's so much displaced anger. Like people are so angry. And I feel like some of the angriest people are the people that have never allowed themselves to fully feel their anger. So they're just like spewing it on other people. And I just feel like there's something so powerful about like being in your own safe, sacred container, allowing yourself to express anger. Specifically for women, I feel like women really suppress their anger. I feel like it's more easier for women to tap into sadness than anger. And I know you guys talked about this in the embodiment coaching program, and I totally agree. And I feel like men, it's more easy for them to access anger, but under that anger is a lot of sadness. And then under our sadness is a lot of anger. So something that I love to do, which I got from you, which I'm so grateful for, is I do like anger rituals for myself. And I actually do that with my clients. And I do this for like our online community. I did like an anger ritual for all of us because
Yes.
there's so much power in that. It's like getting your anger out in a safe, sacred container. Again, setting your timer for 90 seconds, 3 minutes, whatever it is, putting on a song that elicits that anger and getting it out. There's so much power in like getting your anger out, whatever situation may be causing you anger, like someone, whatever it may be. There's just so much power in getting that out in a safe space and not projecting it onto someone else. I love that you taught that in the embodiment coaching program because, yeah, there's so much of that is needed in our world. If people got it out in their own spaces, we wouldn't have so much anger in the world.
Oh my
So,
goodness. Yes,
yeah.
yes. And I
Yeah.
find it, sometimes the more quiet and the more, prim and proper,
Mhm.
these are the ones that like suppress it the most, or it comes
Yeah.
out as resentment.
Mhm.
Suppressed anger will come out as resentment or passive aggressive, and or the silent treatment. And so these are all just coping mechanisms. If we were more
Right.
direct with acknowledging first, I am feeling X. I'm feeling angry. I'm feeling hurt. I'm feeling sad. I'm feeling, naming that emotion, acknowledging it, releasing it, feeling it, and then obviously
Mhm.
letting that go. But we we stop at, okay, I am angry. But if we start choosing our words wisely and say, statement, I am feeling this
Mhm.
emotion, then
Mhm.
we are actually inviting, oh, hey, anger, I see you.
Mhm.
It's not part of us, it's just our emotion that we're feeling at that time. And
Mhm.
so, again, by inviting it in with compassion and with love and with care as if it's a
Mhm.
friend, because
Mhm.
all of these emotions are just, they're just flags, they're just signals, like, oh,
Mhm.
okay, all right, I've got something I need to tend to here. this is
Mhm.
this is this is something in my body that needs to be unearthed, instead
Mhm.
of, avoiding, suppressing, numbing, etc., which is what we're so used to doing because our lives move so fast.
Yeah. And I feel like our emotions are such teachers. Like there's deeper messages within the emotions that we're feeling too. It's like, what is that? What is this trying to teach you? There's something coming up within you that needs your attention. And yeah, I think that's been so powerful. And because I support a lot of women that struggle with like binge eating, emotional eating.
Mhm.
And something that has been so powerful is like, instead of feeding the emotion that's coming up, it's an emotion that's coming up when we're turning to binging, emotional eating. It's like, how can we take that sacred pause and like breathe to create safety within the body and be like, okay, what's coming up for me right now? Because there's typically an emotion that is present that is trying to come up that we're distracting from, or if it's not food, alcohol, drugs, social media, whatever it is, there's all these different distractions that we turn to that are easy. But it's like when you learn how to sit with those emotions and feel the emotions that are coming up for you instead of running from them, there's so much power in that. There's so much deeper understanding within yourself, freeing your nervous system of like all of this energetic weight that it's been carrying. And yeah, there's just so much freedom in being able to sit in the uncomfortable and like get curious about the emotion that's wanting to come up and
So
actually
true.
allowing yourself space to feel it, and that's a rewiring. We were not taught how to do that. I feel like like we're really learning the importance of needing to feel your emotions, because if not, we're leading to so much disease, so much dis-ease in the body. And I think that all of this is like, there's so many shifts, I think, happening collectively, like learning the importance of feeling your emotions. And yeah, these conversations are just so necessary and needed, for us. And then also for the children, for like the next generations to come, so they can just learn how to feel their emotions without needing to suppress them, you know?
Oh, so true. So true. And I think, yeah, the
Yeah.
biggest thing that you shared is, the leaning into what's uncomfortable and the
Yeah.
discomfort of, yeah, it's not going to feel good. It's not going to feel good,
Mhm.
but
Yeah.
once, as we start to rewire our neural pathways, once we start to notice our patterning, our
Mhm.
triggers, and, instead of looking at it as a trigger, looking at it as, all right, this is a signal. This is a signal
Mhm.
of, why am I feeling that way? And,
Mhm.
what is this person saying or doing? Or, if I'm getting cut off in traffic, instead of reacting, how else can I reframe this? And what is
Mhm.
it trying to teach me? I think those are the two biggest questions that I think everyone, should be doing more of.
Yeah. Yeah, and something it's too, it's like often it's a younger part of you that needs to be seen and loved and acknowledged by you. So that's where like the inner child, the inner teenage work comes in because it's like when we're triggered, our triggers are such teachers too. It's like trying to show us something that's not free within us. And I feel like that's why I'm so passionate about inner child and inner teenage work. And I know you are too. Like you guys went through that in the program. And I was like
Fun.
so grateful for that because I had already started doing it and that just like amplified it even more. And I was like, oh my gosh, there's so much power in inner child and inner teenage work because, like, that's where a lot of these things are stemming from. Like, when we're feeling uncomfortable emotions or whatever, it's like, what younger part of you needs to be seen and heard and validated too,
Mhm.
and like feel safe enough to express. So, yeah, I just love
So
that
true.
you guys and that you talk about that because it's so powerful.
Oh my
Yeah.
gosh. I think, I think, yeah, the inner child work is powerful, but I think a lot of times, the inner teen is forgotten. And I
Mm-hmm.
think, to
Mm-hmm.
be honest, that's where we felt the most excluded, or,
Yeah.
the FOMO, or we were, depending on what cultures you were growing up in, you weren't allowed to do anything while seeing your
Mm-hmm.
friends doing all of the things, or you were lying, um, and then your parents found out, and then you were casted as like the bad girl or whatever. So it's like all of these woundings that
Mm-hmm.
then we carry on in our relationships, in our, 20s, 30s, 40s.
Mm-hmm.
And we've got to give space for her, for that
Yeah.
chapter of our life, um, to heal.
Yeah, I got so much out of doing the anger ritual for my inner teenager and I've done it multiple times and just like getting out so much anger for just like the way that I felt, the people that misunderstood me, all of the things. It's just like eliciting, sitting with what I was actually angry about and really tuning into my inner teenager and like listening to music that she listened to at that time and
Yes.
like getting that anger out. So that was like there's so much power in doing that for your inner teenager. Like I remember the anger ritual specifically was like so healing for that part of me, those parts of me. So, yeah, I agree. I feel like the inner teenager is kind of like not talked about as enough, but she and he need space too.
Good.
Yeah.
So good.
Yeah.
Looking to connect with like minded community on your journey of self growth, self love, and spiritual discovery? Join the Beehive, a supportive community hosted by Holly and I, designed to help you on your personal transformation and healing journey and to help you tap into your innate wisdom with live monthly Q&A sessions, exclusive content, and a like minded community. The Beehive is the perfect space to grow and step into your most authentic self. For more information and to sign up, check the link in the show notes.
And I want to take the opportunity because I know that you have kids and I know that there's parents that listen, caretakers that listen. And I'm not a mom yet. I work with like a lot of inner children. So like I know like the inner child space and I have nieces and nephews and all of that. And I know that like for the inner children, a lot of all of the inner children and teenagers just want to be seen, want to be heard, want to be validated. So I'm sure there's similarities with parenting. So I'm curious just like how you allow space for your children to feel their big emotions and like help them become like emotionally intelligent and not have shame around their emotions. Just yeah, how do you go about that?
Yeah, well, I mean, I think it definitely stems from our reactions first, right? I think, as we opened up and I shared the story of my daughter, I could have reacted two ways. I could have, said, "Oh my goodness," and made it such a big deal, and then
Yeah.
passing on that imprint, passing on my own projection. And, you know, or I could have also said, "Ah, It's no big deal. Let's just brush it off. Again,
Mhm.
another way of, potentially gaslighting her if she actually did get hurt.
Mhm.
Right. And so many times I think parents, because of their own, and I see my caregivers too, depending
Mhm.
on their reactions of how they were raised and brought up, as caregivers to my kids, many times I've had to pull them aside and say, just put your hand over your heart. It's okay. We don't have to fully react if our kids are doing something, or if they,
Mhm.
gasp and like all of these things, because they take that in, right? And they internalize
Mhm.
it. And then they start noticing, oh, what gets the attention of my family, my parents, etc., instead of them coming to their own conclusion about what they feel in their body. So, this is kind of awareness 101, is to really allow them to have the language of emotion. So when my son was 2 years old and we were living in LA, and this is when, we had a little area in our home, and I just started putting up these posters of photos of like people, expressions: sad,
Mhm.
happy, angry, um, disgusted, like, just all of these faces. And he's two.
Mhm.
And so we would say, okay, what are you feeling right now? Point to the picture. And then how do you want to feel? And then it would just be like a picture of, I don't know, like a bird or a monkey. So it's like animals, but with their expression. So the monkey would be goofy and fun. The bird would just be, calm. um, there would be a picture of a lion. And so, things for their age, for his age
Mhm.
specifically. And then what were some of the calming strategies? We would call it a calming corner. So there was a blanket, stuffies, pillows. I mean, this sounds like something that adults could even use.
Yeah.
And coloring paper. And so we had this entire, it was beautifully set up, and, books, because what are some of the ways that we can calm your nervous system down when you're feeling a big feeling?
Mhm.
And these feelings are going to come up. And what most happens is their feelings will trigger the inner parts of our inner kids when we were growing up, right? So
Mhm.
if your mom told you no after having that, or you went to the grocery store, you couldn't have that Kit Kat bar, and you threw a big fit, and they're like, okay, I'm going to give you something to cry about. um,
Mhm.
Now you're seeing this in your own child, and you're like, okay, I'm not going to act like my mother, I'm not going to act like my family. But you're allowing them, you're not passing on this type of parenting onto your children. You're witnessing them, and you're saying, okay, I'm here. We said we don't eat chocolate at 8 in the morning, and so you're allowing them their full expression of their emotions, right?
Mhm.
And a lot of times, parents will say, oh my gosh, but what if they cry so much? Yeah, normal meltdown for a kid is going to be about 20 minutes. It's very
Mhm.
true.
And when they're crying, like when one of the children is having a meltdown, do you just kinda like hold space and just
You're holding
are
space.
with them?
It depends on their age. Like with my daughter, we need to co-regulate, because a lot of
Mhm.
times she still doesn't know. My son at 2 was better able to, and they're so different, right? He was
Mhm.
just, you tell him something, and and you'd give him the strategies, and in the beginning it was still hard, and he'll still be, doing all the things, flapping his hands, but he's getting the emotions out, and like it's
Yeah.
just for his age. As he's gotten older, and we're constantly doing this over and over again now, yes, he'll still have a meltdown, but it's not nearly as long, and he'll
Mhm.
know, okay. Just recently, yesterday, we were in the car, we were stuck in traffic,
Mhm.
and he's breathing. And
Oh,
now we'll
yeah.
do certain activating vagus nerve exercises. So we'll sing songs in the car, we'll play the
Mhm.
karaoke game. So of course it's
Mhm.
now age appropriate. My daughter, on the other hand, she's 3, and she's full in her 3,
Mhm.
where it's a little bit, it's a little bit, it requires a lot of patience. And so
Yeah.
now I'm like, okay, I'm here, and I'm going to hold you. And sometimes I'll just take her. And sometimes she just does not want to be held. And I'm like, all right, so when you're ready, And we
Mhm.
have to be okay with the tears. And
Yeah.
most often, especially like the older generation, like my in-laws, they
Mhm.
are like, oh my gosh, she's crying, oh my gosh, I can't handle it, and
Yeah.
so it triggers something in them, because guess what, they weren't allowed that, so they will try to do everything in their power to have her stop.
Mhm.
And now it's more of an education thing to say, no, this is actually really good, we want her to be okay with feeling her emotions.
Mhm.
And sometimes I will have a timer as well. Okay, you felt your emotions for 5 minutes. Now we've got to move on. If we're going to be late
Mhm.
for school or whatever, it's like same thing that we would do with adults, right? We can't let
Right.
it consume our entire day. And so teaching them, yes, okay, it's okay to feel, but now we really have to take some action. What I like to say,
Mhm.
move from the suck and into action.
Yeah.
Let's put our clothes on. Fine, if you want to wear
Yeah.
the dress, you're going to wear the dress, and I'm going to bring an extra change of clothes. So then when you are regulated, perhaps maybe then, she'll change her clothes or whatever the situation was. But a lot of times
Yeah.
it's at these ages, the toddler ages, it's based on you know um, control and power. Their little selves want to be able to have a little bit of power and control, because they're told, don't do this, don't do this, don't do this in their day. And so
Mhm.
many times it's really understanding what their actual needs are, and
Mhm.
you know and being able to say, all right, just being able to talk to them,
Yeah.
and having those safe places where they can emote without
Mhm.
judgment.
Yeah. Yeah. Because I think the biggest thing that I hear, even like out in public, and then I find myself doing this too, is like when kids are crying, I'm like, oh, you're okay. Or like, like it's okay, you're okay. But then it's like, I don't know. I feel like saying you're okay is kind of invalidating how they're feeling, because they're obviously feeling emotional. So, and I think so often, like I remember like growing up, it's kind of like being talked out of your emotions, like, oh no, you're okay. And it's like, wait, no, I don't feel okay. So I think it's like, maybe even, do you have anything that you typically say to help them like just feel
Yeah,
safe?
well,
Ex-
you wanna call out what they're feeling. So, just
Mhm.
yesterday we were in the car, and somebody got a lollipop from school from one of their friends, and guess what? The other kid wanted the lollipop too. And we
Yeah.
have a whole rule, well, no lollipops, but we're in this new place that we just moved to,
Yeah.
and we're still getting our bearings together.
Yeah.
And I said, okay, you want that lollipop. You are mad that you didn't get that lollipop at school. So validating their emotions. Not like,
Mhm.
it's going to be okay. It's going to be okay. I know you didn't get a lollipop. No, it's okay. You didn't get a lollipop. I understand you're frustrated, you're mad, you're angry. I get it. And when we go home, we'll have our snack time. And so
Mhm.
now, again, even in saying that, they're still going to have their meltdown, because guess what?
Mhm.
He did still cry. He did still. But for me to not take that away from his experience and just recognize that he was in that loop, um, definitely shortened the meltdown,
Mhm.
because he knew, okay, mama's here. Did he still want that
Mhm.
lollipop? Oh, he sure did. He sure did.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
you want to be able to talk at the emotion. The other, and there's so many examples of this. But my daughter, she's now in this hitting phase. I mean, she's 3 and she's tinier, and so she learns these moves from kung fu, jujitsu, and these are all great. They'll serve her when she gets older. But she's
Mhm.
starting to defend herself, and sometimes not in the best ways. And so
Yeah.
it's sometimes, the other day I had to say, all right, okay, you hit your brother, that is not acceptable, right? I
Mhm.
understand you are angry that he took that toy away, but we can, if you want that toy, there's a different way that we can ask for your turn if he's not giving it to you, or just
Mhm.
being able to, again, call out the behavior,
Mhm.
recognize the behavior, recognize their emotion, because they don't have the emotional intelligence yet
Mhm.
to name their emotion. Because right now, my son at, now he's 6. Now he's like, okay, I'm sad, mad, frustrated, confused, angry, upset. So he has more of a vocabulary. My daughter doesn't yet. So you're teaching them, okay, I understand you're feeling frustrated right now, so then now she'll say, frustrated. And so she's learning her vocabulary. Um,
Yeah, that's
and
huge.
I think
Yeah.
that's the biggest thing to, to help them understand and regulate. And there are other things that I'll do of, okay, your brain is closed right now, and I'll show them my fist closing, and
Mm-hmm.
I'll say, okay, we need to breathe so that we can open up our brain, and so oxygen can come to our brain, and we can actually breathe and feel better. And then I'll kind of, if you guys are watching this, but I'll breathe in.
Oh.
And then they're like, okay, high five. And then right away it helps them calm down because they have a visual representation of a closed fist. This means your brain
Mm-hmm.
is closed, right? And it's age appropriate. We don't need to say the limbic brain, the fear brain.
Yeah.
Like, we don't need to get
Yeah.
into all of that. Just,
Yeah.
just a closed fist, and then they open it up, and this is the best visual. And
Yeah.
now, and the other thing too, it's shaking because, we
Mm-hmm.
taught we I just taught them the shaky dance, where it's basically, okay, you've got anger in your head and anger in your body, so let's just wipe away the anger and wipe away
Mm-hmm.
all of the, and so guess what, they're actually tapping, and we know tapping helps. In Chinese medicine, it's the meridians, it's activating certain parts of our parasympathetic. And so, but I'm just kind of having them, all right, tap away, and
Making
so,
it fun.
and
Mm-hmm.
it's fun. And then they're like, oh my gosh, we're doing the monkey dance. And, so it's just like, we're getting away all of the anger. And so, like, get it out of your body. And so then they're jumping up and down. Oh, guess what? They're moving that emotion. They're tapping their body. So they're regulating your nervous system. And then it's
Mm-hmm.
like, okay, it's out. So, and so, but they're still tapping all over, which means they're changing their energetic state. So we're
Mm-hmm.
making it fun. And guess what?
Yeah.
I like to do that too.
Yeah, we need that too. Adults need that too. You're regulating yourself just as they're regulating too. Yeah.
100%. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, I love that so much. Yeah, I think that's so going to be so supportive for people. So thank you for sharing that. Yeah, I love that. Awesome. Well, I know we're coming up on time, so I want to be respectful of your time. Is there anything that we missed? Anything that you want to share?
No, this was such a
Yeah.
pleasure. Thank you so much for having me on.
Yeah, of course. And I'll have all of your information in the show notes, your Instagram, and then you have the Brave Table. Is that what it's called?
Yes, we have the Brave Table.
Yeah.
It's top 50 in mental health and relationships. We brave conversations around your nervous system, relationships,
Mhm.
and your overall well-being as mamas. So, yeah.
Oh, beautiful. Yes. Well, I'll have all of that in the show notes. And yeah, just thank you so much for your time, for your light, for your wisdom, for all that you do. Yeah. And just for being you and just being authentic. Like, I feel like you just help so many people by sharing your authenticity and just your light and your story and all of it. So just thank you for having the courage to be you and be honest. So yeah, just thank you for
My
your time.
pleasure. And everything that you're doing, I just want to honor you, Holly,
Oh,
and,
thank you.
you're creating ripple effects. So, such a pleasure to
Yeah.
sit with you today.
Oh, thank you. Yes. Well, thank you all so much for listening. And with that, we'll talk to you next Wednesday. As we wrap up today's episode, we want to extend our deepest gratitude for joining us on this journey. Your support does not go unnoticed. If you enjoyed this episode and find value in our conversations, please take a moment to leave a review. Your feedback not only helps us grow, but also allows us to reach more people who can benefit from our community of healing and support. Every review, every rating makes a difference. Thank you for being a part of the Multiple Truths podcast family. Thank you so much for joining us on this episode of the Multiple Truths podcast. Keep speaking your truth and spreading your light. We love you, and we'll talk to you next Wednesday.